Well, members, it is with vile and gruesome irony that I must report to you that yesterday, the very day that we passed an irresponsible bill allowing a 21-year-old kid with 12 hours of training and a background check to have full access to the records of an abused and neglected child, with removal of the case being the only penalty should they disclose to the world the child's sensitive, confidential information. At that very same moment that we passed that bill, a jury in Detroit convicted the murderers of little 5-year-old Ethan Belcher on all counts with life sentences. Yesterday, Ethan Belcher's case was the very catalyst that compelled me to put in Senate Bill 53 to require CPS cases to be opened up in cases of egregious failure like Ethan's, to any sitting member of the legislature or to the credentialed media, provided that we signed a confidentiality agreement at penalty of a misdemeanor. This bill, I believe, might save hundreds of lives of abused and tortured kids in Michigan. And yet this vital legislation has been stalled dead on arrival in the Oversight Committee since I introduced it back in February 7th of 2023. After yesterday's verdict, Ethan's aunts called me to relate how horrifying and life-altering this catastrophic experience has been. That no one who has not experienced this kind of heartbreaking tragedy can possibly imagine trying to go to sleep at night with these atrocious images swirling in your head. They also told me categorically that they are absolutely committed to continuing this fight to make a difference, that they are committed to coming to Lansing again and again and again to work to get Senate Bill 53 passed. Ethan's aunts made Herculean efforts to inform CPS over a dozen times about his being repeatedly beaten head to toe and these reports going nowhere, and Ethan once again and again being sent back to the tender mercies of those monsters. For the edification of members here in this chamber who do care, the Detroit News reported 5-year-old Ethan was forced to sleep in a small, unfinished closet with a urine-soaked blanket in a cold, sewage-filled basement. Ethan was beaten with a broken fly swatter and a kitchen pipe. The medical examiner said Ethan's body was covered with injuries. He died of blunt force trauma, sharp force injuries with complications of sepsis and pneumonia. He had a fractured hip and fractured rib and a dislocated hip. He had severe cuts in between his toes with puncture wounds to his buttocks. His extremities showed ligature marks on his wrists and ankles with cuts and bruises over his entire body. He had a swollen knee, frostbitten toes, rotted with gangrene, and a necrotic left toe. Many of those in this chamber, I am sure, will forget this case, perhaps even by the very end of this session day. But I will never forget 5-year-old Ethan, nor will his aunts. And I believe that all loving, concerned parents here in the state of Michigan will not forgive the cold iceberg hearts of those on the other side of the aisle who refuse to allow a hearing on this vital, long overdue bill that would allow us members in this chamber and credentialed media to get involved and begin to stop these seemingly endless, horrific, brutal tortures and murders of Michigan's children. The emotional toll on Ethan's family has been, particularly his aunts, is unimaginable. And their commitment to fight for this reform could be just the critical step needed toward educating and garnering the public support, and the sharing of these details about Ethan's horrific suffering just underscores the urgency of passing this legislation to prevent future tragedies.